Hello friends, I am glad to see you again. Today I'm going to tell you about a housing association that says I have 24 hours to move. 23 minutes after sunrise on an ordinary Thursday, two uniformed security contractors I'd never seen before strode up my driveway as if they owned the concrete. One balanced a clipboard. The other rested his palm on a bulky hip radio, the kind mall cops love because it screams authority from 50 feet away. I'm looking for... Clipboard guy squinted at the sheet. Colt? That's me, I said, coffee mug halfway to my lips. By order of the Maple Ridge Homeowners Association, he announced, you have 24 hours to vacate these premises. Failure to comply will be considered trespassing. He ripped a fluorescent sticker from the clipboard and slapped it dead center on my storm door. Eviction notice in angry red letters. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my brain short-circuited. I own this place outright. No mortgage, no liens. The county recorder's stamp sits framed beside my desktop monitor. It's my pride and joy, proof that 3 side hustles and a decade of ramen had paid off. You can't evict a homeowner, I said, voice wobbling between disbelief and sarcasm. That's not how property law works. Take it up with the board, Hip Radio muttered. Then they strutted back to their white SUV, leaving tire tracks and the faint smell of cheap cologne. If you've never tangled with a homeowners association, imagine middle school hall monitors who traded clipboards for covenants and found a legal way to bully adults. Maple Ridge started benign. Keep lawns tidy. No neon-painted sheds. Scoop after your dog. Reasonable enough. Then, 3 months ago, Brenda, the longtime president, moved closer to her grandkids, and the board elected Shonda, a retired event planner who treated every rulebook like decorative suggestions. Shonda's manifesto arrived the day after she took office, glossy trifolds stuffed in mailboxes at dawn. A bold new vision for Maple Ridge, it trumpeted in 24-point serif. Among the bullet points, reimagining aging single-family lots as transitional housing opportunities. Mandatory uniform mailboxes purchased through her nephew's metals company. A strict ban on agricultural misuse, a fancy way of saying my backyard orchard of pears, figs, and one stubborn avocado tree was an eyesore. Neighbors grumbled, but most shrugged. HOAs pull power from apathy. Shonda knew it. I knew it. I just didn't realize how far she'd go. I tore the sticker off, snapped a photo, and texted it to my buddy Tanner, the only person I trust with both my Wi-Fi password and my bourbon stash. Tanner designs cybersecurity platforms. He also owns a parrot that curses in pirate slang. Me, you ever seen an HOA try to evict a homeowner? Tanner, not since that Florida case where the board forged signatures. Want me to dig? Me, please, and bring coffee, strong. While I waited, I called the sheriff's non-emergency line. Deputy Alvarez confirmed what I suspected. An HOA can't remove a resident without a court-ordered writ of possession, and those only come after a judge signs off, usually following months of litigation. She offered to send a cruiser if anyone tried forced entry. By noon, my porch resembled a swap meet for nosy neighbors. Mrs. Givens walked over with a tin of lemon bars for courage. Victor from 2 doors down filmed a TikTok about the sticker, pointing at my front door like it was Bigfoot evidence. Shonda, naturally, was missing in action. Tanner arrived at 1:30, laptop bag bouncing against his hip. Pulled the public filings, he said before I even got the door closed. Maple Ridge HOA hasn't updated its bylaws with the county since 2011. That means any amendments Shonda rammed through are technically invalid until recorded. He spun the screen. Spreadsheets, ledger entries, line items circled in crimson. Also, their reserve fund is down 40% since April. Money's bleeding somewhere. I felt my jaw tighten. So she's either incompetent or using HOA dues like Monopoly cash. Or both, Tanner grinned. Want to hit her with a double whammy? We file a temporary restraining order preventing enforcement of unrecorded rules, then request a forensic audit. Judges love paper trails. I nodded slowly. Make the calls, I'm going shopping for yard signs. The next morning, my lawn showcased 6 plywood boards painted sunflower yellow. Private property, entry by court order only. I bolted them deep 3-inch galvanized screws sunk into cedar stakes because petty battles deserve overkill. A local news van rolled up before breakfast. Apparently Victor's TikTok hit 200K views overnight. I gave a calm, neighborly interview on camera, laid out the basics. Paid off home, bogus notice, rogue HOA. Nothing inflammatory, just enough to shift public sentiment. At noon, the sheriff's clerks confirmed my TRO hearing for Monday, 3 business days away. Until then, The HOA was barred from taking any direct action intended to remove or harass the petitioner from lawful residence. Translation, hands off my porch. That's when Shonda finally materialized, flanked by 2 board members. Gail, who sells essential oils from her garage, and Rick, a part-time life coach whose main credential is a 6-week webinar. They marched up wearing matching polos embroidered with the association logo. "Colt," Shonda began, voice syrupy, "you're causing unnecessary spectacle. If you just vacate temporarily, we can resolve this without more drama." My laugh came out sharper than I intended. "Which part of court order did you not understand?" Gail sniffed. "We're enforcing community standards." "Great. Standard number 1, obey state property code." I pointed at my freshly posted signs. "You step beyond that walkway, you violate a judge's injunction." Rick folded his arms. "You can't hide behind technicalities forever." "Legal technicalities," I corrected, "also known as rights." They retreated, but I noticed Rick lingering, gaze sliding toward my orchard. Something about the way his eyes tracked the avocado tree made my gut twist. Saturday, Tanner worked his digital wizardry while I canvassed the neighborhood, collecting signatures for a special meeting to recall the board. State statute required 10% of members. Maple Ridge had 108 homes, so I needed 11 signatures. I gathered 30 by dusk. People were furious once they heard the details. In the process, I uncovered subplot number 2. Shonda's nephew's metals company had invoiced the HOA almost $12,000 for custom mailbox prototypes. Not installed, not ordered, just prototypes. The association paid 50% up front, money gone. Meanwhile, Victor's social media fame invited reporters, which stressed Shonda enough to issue a press release accusing me of threatening community safety. That backfired when Channel 8 aired footage of her security contractors slapping eviction stickers on what looked like an ordinary, peaceful cottage. On Sunday evening, Tanner burst into my kitchen waving a thumb drive. Got the smoking gun. The drive contained board meeting minutes, yes, minutes, from a private cloud Shonda assumed no one would hack. Highlights: a motion to designate my lot common area annex for a future clubhouse. Discussion on leveraging a dormant covenant clause about non-compliant agricultural activity as grounds for forced removal. A note that legal retention funds could be offset by selling my property once seized. I stared at the screen. My stomach churned, equal parts rage and adrenaline. They plan to take my home and flip it to cover their budget hole. "Yup," Tanner said. And they put it in writing. We printed 3 sets, for my attorney, for the county prosecutor, and for backup. Monday's courtroom smelled like old carpet cleaner. Judge Norwood, brisk and stone-faced, scanned the filings. Shonda's attorney tried spinning the orchard as a commercial farm. I produced receipts. 0 produce sales, all fruit donated to the local food bank. I also produced the minutes. The gallery gasped when Norwood read aloud the plan to annex my lot. The judge's gavel struck wood. "This court hereby enjoins Maple Ridge Homeowners Association and its agents from any eviction attempt, property seizure, or harassment pending further review. Furthermore, the court authorizes the petitioner to post notice of this order at all entrances to the subdivision." Shonda's lawyer's shoulders sagged. Tanner high-fived me in the hallway like we'd just won state championship. But winning a TRO is like stopping a leak with duct tape. The pipe still needs replacing. That afternoon, I drafted recall ballots while Tanner coordinated with residents online. We scheduled the special meeting for Friday night in my driveway. HOA bylaws allowed any publicly accessible space within the subdivision. Driveway counts. I rented floodlights and borrowed folding chairs from the community center Shonda refused to book for us. The next 48 hours flew. Volunteers canvassed door to door. Mrs. Givens baked cookies in assembly line quantities. Victor live-streamed our prep, punctuating each frame with free legal hotlines for anyone who felt intimidated. Meanwhile, Shonda sent an email blast warning that unauthorized gatherings may incur fines of $500 per member. That email forwarded nicely to Judge Norwood's clerk. Friday, turnout exceeded every potluck I'd ever attended. 82 households represented, many clutching proxies for absent neighbors. Per bylaw, recall required a 2/3 majority of ballots cast. We surpassed it in the first half hour. Gail resigned on the spot. Rick stormed off muttering about litigious parasites. Shonda refused to step down until someone cited Section 5.07(c), which yanked her title the instant ballots were counted. The crowd erupted, a weird blend of block party and liberation parade. But the real fireworks arrived 10 minutes later when two sheriff's cruisers rolled up. Deputies stepped out, asked for Shonda. She tried to hide behind a hedge, didn't work. Deputy Alvarez read the warrant. Felony misappropriation of fiduciary funds and attempted grand larceny via fraudulent property seizure. The minutes Tanner unearthed weren't just HOA gossip. They were evidence. Neighbors filmed as Shonda, wrists cuffed, was ushered into the cruiser. Someone started an impromptu chant of "Not Your Clubhouse" that rippled down the street. I'd be lying if I said I didn't join for a beat or two. The weekend felt unreal. Reporters camped at Maple Ridge's entrance. Lawyers for the management company parachuted in, promising full cooperation. Meanwhile, an interim board, made of people who actually read the bylaws, started damage control. First order, audit. Second, suspend all fines issued under Shonda's tenure. Third, send a mass apology. Tanner and I finally exhaled on my deck Sunday night, sipping tea because adrenaline crashes do weird things to your stomach. Fireflies winked over the orchard. "You realize," he said, "this could end with the HOA dissolved." I shrugged. "Might be the best outcome." He tapped his mug. "You ready for phase 2? I smiled. "Oh, I've been ready since the morning they slapped that sticker on my door." Phase 2 began at dawn on the first Monday after Shonda's arrest, with an envelope wedged under my windshield wiper. No return address, just my name in loopy purple ink. Inside was a single sheet, photocopy of a quitclaim deed transferring my parcel to Maple Ridge Civic Trust, dated 3 weeks earlier and signed, allegedly, by me. The signature bore a passing resemblance to mine, the way a carnival caricature resembles the real person if the artist were tipsy and half-blind. I hustled the document straight to the county recorder's office. The clerk, a brisk woman named Rowan, scrolled the database and shook her head. "No record of this ever being submitted." She angled the screen so I could see the blank entry. "But someone tried to schedule a same-day recording appointment 2 Fridays ago. They canceled last minute." I thanked her and called Tanner on speaker while driving home. He whistled low. "Forgery escalates your civil case to criminal territory. Good for you, bad for them. Problem is figuring out who forged it," I said. "Let me run a metadata scrape on the scan. Might reveal the office machine that made it." By midday, he'd traced the PDF's embedded serial number to a copy center 2 towns east. The manager pulled security footage. Rick, the life coach board member, feeding documents into a high-speed scanner at midnight. Footage zipped over to Detective Langley, the white-collar specialist assigned to Shonda's case. And just like that, subplot number 3, Rick's forgery side hustle, locked into place. While the criminal wheels turned, the interim HOA board faced a math problem. Reserves were so hollowed out that street lamp electricity might be cut within 60 days. Insurance premiums loomed, payday loan style. Folks who'd ignored quarterly statements finally read them and realized Maple Ridge sat on the brink of insolvency. The new treasurer, a quietly intense librarian named Maribel, cornered me at the community center. "Colt, I know you're spearheading the recall, but we need constructive fixes too. You're a homeowner without a mortgage. Would you consider sitting on the finance committee?" I'd rather sand drywall with my teeth, yet I agreed. "If you want things done right, you show up, preferably with spreadsheets." At the first committee meeting, Maribel projected the ledgers onto a portable screen. Line items glowed like neon crime scene markers. $18,400 labeled Event Consulting, Urban Revitalization Symposium. Venue fee, 0. Food, donated, money gone. $42,000 Landscape Modernization Grant. Paid to Green Apex LLC, a shell tracing back to Shonda's cousin in Nevada. $9,700 Community Morale Enhancement. Translation, Rick's Motivational Workshops. Attendance 6, including Rick. Add legal retainer advances, mailbox prototypes, and a baffling invoice for executive emotional labor. And the reserve plunged from healthy to hemorrhaging in just 4 months. We brainstormed revenue triage while keeping dues flat. My orchard offered inspiration. "Why not a seasonal farmer's market?" I proposed. "We waive stall fees for residents, charge outsiders $20 a table, and split proceeds with the maintenance fund." Maribel's eyes lit. "Could also invite local artisans, painting, soaps, the works." We drafted a pilot plan for August. Meanwhile, Detective Langley executed search warrants on Rick's condo. They found a Trojan horse of paperwork, forged quitclaim templates, blank notary stamps, even a steps to secure default judgments flowchart. Turns out Rick intended to rinse and repeat my eviction across half a dozen homes bordering the planned clubhouse. Shonda provided board signatures. Rick provided forged homeowner signatures. Gail created the escrow narrative. Greed links charmingly creative minds. Langley called me in as material witness. The DA's office hinted at a plea deal if Rick rolled on Shonda, but she'd already started bargaining. Both blamed Gail, who in turn hired an attorney specializing in community governance misunderstandings. The DA was unmoved. Charges stacked: conspiracy to commit grand larceny, wire fraud, record tampering, forgery, and fiduciary abuse. Potential sentences tallied like casino chips, except the House always wins. Plotline 4 sprouted abruptly when a black SUV with tinted windows began cruising Maple Ridge streets nightly. My trail cam captured plates linked to Meridian Development Group, a regional builder known for bulldozing aging subdivisions into luxury townhomes. Rumors said they'd courted Shonda before her election, promising a personal consultancy fee for facilitating neighborhood transition. I took the footage to Detective Langley. He frowned. Developers often fish for distressed properties, but if they colluded with HOA leadership to create the distress, that's racketeering territory. Word of Meridian's prowling, riled homeowners. Interim board approved motion to install automated license plate cameras at both entrances, funded by a GoFundMe that hit goal within 45 minutes. Rage is a powerful backer. Mid-July, Maple Ridge held its inaugural sunset market under strings of borrowed Edison bulbs. My orchard donated pears and figs. Kids dunked them in chocolate fountains. Maribel conned a rental company into beta testing for free. We netted $8,200 that first evening, more than enough to keep streetlights glowing and repaint the pool deck. Local TV showed up again, this time capturing laughter instead of squad cars. Public perception pivoted hard. Maple Ridge was no longer the cautionary tale. It was the comeback kid. That spotlight quietly pressured county supervisors, who granted us a small community development grant to overhaul water-efficient landscaping, trimming long-term costs while boosting curb appeal. Then Rick's preliminary hearing arrived. Courtrooms buzz differently when defendants wear orange. I testified about the forged quit claim. Prosecutors unfurled the flowchart, exhibit tags flapping like carnival flags, while the judge peered over half glasses. Rick's lawyer attempted a misguided paperwork error defense. Prosecutor Levin sliced it apart, citing Rick's own notes. Step 7. File for default, homeowner unlikely to appear, profit. The gavel's thunk wasn't final judgment, but remand without bail signaled trajectory, downward spiral. Outside, reporters swarmed for sound bites. I repeated my 3-part mantra. Homeowner rights matter. Transparency prevents abuse. Communities thrive when neighbors engage. Felt hokey, yet honest. Tanner, meanwhile, discovered Shonda's personal cloud backup contained a spreadsheet titled Projected Personal Earnings. Among columns, developer buyout bonus, HOA president salary, future revision, and chillingly, orchard dismantle salvage estimate. Evidently, my avocado tree's demise had a price line of $750. We forwarded the file to Detective Langley. Within a week, Meridian served a subpoena. A grand jury opened inquiry into whether the company knowingly bribed the board. Emails surfaced, invoices disguised as consulting dinners that matched Shonda's credit card statements. The R word, racketeering, stopped being hypothetical. Back at home, I pruned the orchard under lenient summer twilight. Kids chased fireflies between rows of mulch. Adults sipped iced tea while discussing budget projections. Maple Ridge was healing. Yet a sliver of anxiety stayed lodged under my ribs until legal knots tied tight anything could unravel. That unease proved prescient. One humid Tuesday at 3 a.m., my phone pinged. Motion alert from the backyard camera. I squinted at the feed. 2 silhouettes sneaking toward the avocado tree with chainsaw and gas can. Heart ricocheted. I thumbed speed dial to 911, grabbed the aluminum baseball bat from under my bed, and sprinted downstairs, remembering Deputy Alvarez's advice. Don't confront if armed intruders, but do create noise. I flicked floodlights and blared my truck alarm. Shadows froze. One figure bolted, scale model chainsaw whining as it snagged on the fence. The other slipped on fallen pears, smacked the ground, and floundered. Sheriff's cruisers arrived in 5 minutes, captured intruder. Gail's middle school nephew coaxed with $50 and pizza to prank the orchard. Chainsaw traced back to Rick via pawn ticket routing. Gas can, Meridian Dev label melted but legible. Evidence chain reinforced conspiracy threads. Judge Norwood's patience evaporated. He expanded the TRO into a permanent injunction. Any party linked to former board barred from Maple Ridge property without written permission. Violators face contempt charges and $10,000 per incident fines. Additionally, he granted the HOA a civil lien against assets of Shonda, Rick, Gail for anticipated restitution. Case momentum snowballed. By August, Maribel and I sat at a folding table in the community center reviewing settlement offers. Shonda's attorney proposed surrendering her house to the HOA in lieu of cash. Rick offered his Life Coach brand's intellectual property, which Maribel dryly noted was worth less than expired yogurt. We countered, full cash restitution plus public apology letter delivered to every mailbox. Otherwise, we proceed to trial seeking treble damages under state consumer protection statutes. Their lawyers blinked. Trial risked prison and bankruptcy. They caved. Settlement checks arrived late September, $118,000 combined, covering reserve shortfall and funding new playground surfacing. The apology letters came printed on discount paper. But sincerity wasn't the point, accountability was. Meridian's executives weren't as lucky. Grand jury indictments landed for bribery and attempted property theft. Stock dipped, projects stalled. The County Planning Commission cited Maple Ridge as cautionary precedent and tightened developer oversight countywide. Poetic collateral consequence. With crises winding down, the interim board scheduled dissolution vote. Keep the HOA with newly fortified bylaws or disband and transition governance to a special district under county maintenance. Debates ran cordial. My stance, keep the HOA properly. Covenants aren't villainous, corrupt people are. After 3 town hall sessions, residents voted 61-41 to retain. Safeguards added. Open meeting live streams, rotating committee seats, mandatory external audits. Recall threshold lowered to 25% signatures. I declined nomination for permanent board but agreed to serve 1 year on finance to mentor successors. Give them the tools, then step back. That's how you prevent monarchy creep. The orchard flourished into communal centerpiece. Once skeptical neighbors installed raised beds, cultivating tomatoes, basil, even the subdivision's first beehive, carefully sited away from Mrs. Given's schnauzer. Kids learned pollination beats PlayStation for wonder, and every harvest we boxed surplus produce for the food bank, scribbling Maple Ridge proud on each crate. One late autumn evening, with leaves amber red and sun dropping behind sawtooth rooftops, I paused beneath the avocado tree, the same one nearly chainsawed to oblivion, and savored the hush. Tanner leaned against the trunk beside me. "Crazy ride," he said. "Worth it," I replied. He nodded toward the street where new LED lamps cast gentle pools of light, paid for by settlement funds. "Think we made your 13-year younger self proud?" I glanced at the framed county deed hung inside my window, reflection catching the orchard behind it. "I think we reminded folks a house is more than walls. It's every root you sink deep and every branch you share." Next week, Judge Norwood will bang his gavel one final time, closing the criminal chapter. Restitution will finish paying out over 5 years. Shonda might serve half her sentence with good behavior. Rick probably less. Gail's plea deal includes 2,000 hours community service. Ironic twist. She'll be landscaping public parks. Justice, like pear trees, grows slowly but yields sweet. If another HOA ever tries bulldozing my rights, they'll find fluorescent signs already stacked in my garage and a community that knows exactly where private property begins and overreach ends. Rain whispered against my porch roof the morning Detective Langley left a voicemail that jolted my pulse harder than espresso. "Colt, it's Langley. Grand jury testimony is set for tomorrow. You're our linchpin on the racketeering charges, so cancel whatever else you've got." "No, please, no, see you then." Just facts crisp as starched cuffs. Still, I couldn't fault his urgency. Meridian Development Group had poured money into heavyweight attorneys the way some people pour creamer into coffee, recklessly and without measuring. If we fumbled even one element in the timeline of bribes, forged deeds, and attempted property seizures, their counsel would shred our case like tax documents in April. I spent the afternoon combing emails, lining up screenshots, and printing photos. Shonda and Meridian's regional VP clinking champagne at a street improvement workshop. Rick's scanned quitclaim flowchart annotated with margin notes linking back to Meridian's internal code name, Project Fresh Slate. Each page went into a 3-ring binder sealed with neon tabs. My living room looked like a pop-up war room. Posters of HOA budgets under red string, map pins on every house targeted for eviction. Post-its marking cash flows. Tanner wandered in and whistled. Color-coded vengeance, I approve. Evidence, not vengeance, I corrected, though privately I savored the symmetry. They weaponized paperwork. We'd bury them in it. Grand jury day broke humid courthouse parking lot shimmering like wet asphalt under a magnifying glass. Inside, a clerk guided me to a plain room. 12 jurors, 1 prosecutor, no judge. Grand juries feel simultaneously informal and monumental. You sit at a folding table, water pitcher sweating beside you, yet every syllable has the gravity of wet concrete. Prosecutor Levin started with softball questions, ownership history, timeline of the eviction notice. Then she steered into Meridian's involvement. Mr. Colt, did you observe any representatives of Meridian on Maple Ridge property while Miss Shonda presided over the board? Yes, I answered. Black SUV, plate ending 6TX. Occupants photographed our common areas 3 separate nights. Trail cam images date-stamped. I handed over glossy prints. Jurors leaned in, brows tightening. Levin elevated her voice a notch. And do these images correspond with any communications you later discovered? I flipped to the email screenshot, Shonda to Meridian. Per your request, latest visual status of target lots attached. The room exhaled collectively, as if they'd been holding breath since the binder opened. Defense counsel couldn't cross-examine, but Meridian's lawyers sat along the back wall scribbling furious notes. I kept my answers crisp, referencing statutes when possible. California Penal Code for forgery. State RICO analog for pattern of illegal acts. 45 minutes later, Levin closed with gratitude and ushered me out. Hallway air felt lighter. A week after testimony, the sealed indictment dropped early. 6 a.m. alert from the county clerk. 17 counts across Meridian executives, Shonda, Rick, and Gail. News apps exploded. Push notifications painted Maple Ridge as David slinging stones at a Goliath backed by hedge fund billions. That coverage, oddly enough, drove up property interest. Realtors began fielding calls from buyers who liked the idea of living somewhere neighbors actually fought for one another. While Meridian's attorneys prepared motions to dismiss, interim board duties continued. Maribel and I launched the second Sunset Market, now bi-weekly. Attendance doubled. A local coffee roaster donated barrels of chaff for compost, and a jazz quartet played on Rick's former front lawn. Poetic, given that county seized his property to secure restitution. One evening after teardown, Gail approached me, hands blistered, orange vest labeled Community Service Volunteer. Sweat glistened on her brow, and sincerity softened her features. Colt, I know apologies can't undo harm, she said, voice trembling. I was chasing easy money and ignored my conscience. She held out a mason jar of honey produced by our new neighborhood beehive. Consider this a peace offering. I accepted. Part of rebuilding meant letting people grow. She still had 1,940 hours of service left, but genuine remorse deserves space. Late November brought the tax assessor's surprise. A reassessment packet bumping my property value by 40% because anticipated infrastructure improvements supposedly elevated Maple Ridge into a luxury tier. Suspicious? Absolutely, given Meridian's pet lobbyist sat on the assessor's advisory board. I filed an appeal. California law grants homeowners the right to present evidence at an assessment appeals board hearing, so I prepared a malicious compliance avalanche. If they wanted data, I'd drown them in it. Over 2 weekends, Tanner and I photographed every cracked sidewalk, weed-choked drainage channel, and rust-flecked street sign, remnants of deferred maintenance we were only just addressing. We logged water pressure irregularities, compiled resident testimonies on sump pump overflows, and graphed historical sale prices showing modest, not explosive growth. Hearing day, the county annex buzzed under fluorescent hum. 3 assessors eyed my rolling suitcase of exhibits. When I reached PowerPoint slide 46, foot traffic erosion, they begged me to trim. I invoked my right to present everything. 40 minutes later, the chairwoman sighed and reset my inflated valuation. One more pin popped in Meridian's balloon. By January, the criminal trials converged. Judge Norwood kept the Meridian Shonda RICO case. Jury selection went national. Security opened overflow rooms. Meridian's counsel painted the company as visionaries thwarted by extremist homeowners. Prosecutor Levin traced money. Dues siphoned to shell firms, forged deeds from Rick's midnight copier, a plan to flip 20 houses worth $23 million. Week 2, my binder returned. I guided jurors through the neon eviction sticker, orchard photos, fake quit claim. Counsel tried to brand me an HOA hater. "I dislike fraud, counsel," I replied. Laughter rippled. Jurors rolled their eyes when they called my orchard commercial. Donation receipts shut that down. Maple Ridge held together outside court. Neighbors rotated child care. Seniors got a shuttle. Teens live-tweeted facts. Deputy Alvarez joked he'd never seen a legal fight turn festival. In March, verdict day, guilt rang on 14 counts. Norwood thundered sentence. Shonda 8 years, Rick 6, Gale 3 with part suspended. Meridian execs 10 each and $92 million in fines. Half for Maple Ridge, half for county housing. Relief replaced adrenaline. Escrow paid out in 6 months. Average restitution check, $5,700. The board urged, maybe plant a tree. Saplings of maple, dogwood, and dwarf apple soon dotted yards. Another slice funded a legal resources pool. Budgets now stream live online. Joy resumed. We launched orchard lights, fruit trees wrapped with solar lanterns, tin can luminaries along the loop, food trucks donating proceeds. Kids-shaped lanterns like pears and avocados, the tree that started it all. Opening night, I stood on a burlap-draped truck bed. Property isn't just what we own. It's what we protect together. Applause rolled. Tanner nudged me toward Gale, still in service vest, planting wildflowers. Accountability met redemption. A ripple followed. A class action firm wanted our documents to tackle other crooked HOAs. We released a free toolkit, TRO templates, audit guides, recall ballots. Downloads spiked. Radio dubbed us the Suburban Justice League. Our playbook inspired a state bill mandating annual HOA audits. I testified. 6 months later, the governor signed. Exactly 493 days after the eviction notice, Tanner and I lounged beneath the avocado tree. "Think anyone will believe this at 80? He teased. We laughed about fish stories and eyed my framed deed, now paired with the grand jury certificate. Completion felt tangible. Then came a county brochure. Maple Ridge won an Outstanding Community Revitalization Award, and I was keynote speaker. Under chandeliers in a converted depot, I told our story. No caricatured villains, no saintly heroes, just people and law. I ended with Alvarez's line, "Justice is conscience, not personal conscience, but the conscience of the whole of humanity." Applause echoed. Life settled into rhythms, sunset markets, rotating boards, kids on resurfaced streets. My 1-year finance stint ended. Spreadsheets passed to Eileen, a retired CPA who audits for fun. Freed weekends, I taught backyard orchard basics. A dead sapling meant replanting, no panic. Resilience became habit. Gale finished service and opened a pollinator garden company. First client was Meridian's former office, now a non-profit hub after fines gutted profits. Rick wrote from prison warning others about unchecked charisma. Shonda seeks parole tied to affordable housing work. Norwood will decide. I added another row of figs and hung a gate sign. Colt's Common Orchard, fruit for neighbors, lessons for anyone. Trespassers will be offered pie. Visitors laugh, but hospitality is the sturdier fence. Some nights I sit on the porch listening to lawnmower hum and children's laughter. The fluorescent sticker hangs in my office. Relic of those who thought an HOA could erase a life in 24 hours. They learned the counter lesson. A homeowner armed with facts, friends, and faith in due process can flip eviction into renaissance. When doubts nibble, I walk the rows. Trees don't rush, justice too takes seasons, but it bears fruit for those who tend it. Friends, thank you. See you soon.